All right. Hi, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started with the webinar. Today's webinar is for Shopify store owners who are experiencing some growing pains. If you've seen this show from the late 90s, sort of a play on words here with the growing pains. Let me go ahead and get started here. All right. Today's webinar will be about 37 minutes. I'm the presenter. I'm Calvin Luttrell. I'm the CEO of ProjectThunder. Today's topic is on Shopify store owners who are experiencing growing pains. The purpose of the webinar is that by the end, you'll have some idea on how you can continue to grow your e-commerce business and continue to push the boundaries of what you're able to do with your platform. All right. So most of the folks on the call today are Shopify store owners, and so at first, most businesses start as an idea that you want to sell something online. And you're right, there's lots of money to be made using an e-commerce tool like this to sell stuff. We've helped customers sell tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of merchandise on their websites. As a small business owners grow and evolve with the industry. They usually launch with what's available to them at the time. And Shopify is a great way to get started. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. As I mentioned, I'm Calvin Luttrell. I'm the CEO of ProjectThunder. Feel free to follow me at Twitter at Calvin Luttrell. I started my computer career at Goldmine Software. I was hired at 19 years old, and they work with you. It was a really great work experience for us, and they groomed us and really helped us grow there. So in no time at all, I was helping support Platinum partners and premium customers. And working with them, this is a company that, I guess the easiest way to put it, this is a company that doubled in size every year. So they were really good at creating success. And while I was there, I had the opportunity and the pleasure of working there and learning so much about technology. Probably my next biggest venture will be with 1-800-Dentist. I started working there probably, I would guess, around 1999. So this is dating me a little bit. I helped their team transition to the .NET development. We modernized and helped with conversions. What I learned at 1-800-Dentist that was really interesting is that small changes can make a big difference. And, we weren't, we'd launch websites and do things, but working with code and optimizing things and seeing conversion improvements was really, really key to my development, if you will, and learning how to do e-commerce. Now with ProjectThunder, we've been doing this. My partner Alex and I co-founded the business about 10 years ago. We've been very successful in keeping our clients. Our clients are paramount to us. We don't take on a lot of new clients. We tend to work with people for, as long as that business iteration is around. Average retention is about 7 years. And I mentioned about the small iterative changes. That's really where we find that people are really doing well over time. So we may start with a client, perhaps they're only doing $100,000 a month in sales. And then working with them over time, we're able to change that trajectory and get them up to $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a month in sales. So, and I wish I could say there was a silver bullet to do that. If there was, obviously everyone would be doing it. But it's usually a lot of small things. Small improvements to merchandising, pay-per-click. We also are not just a website customizer, if you will. We're also a platform builder. And so we have built and architected things like Shopify, but not exactly like Shopify. And some of these solutions I could talk about in a private setting if anyone wants to talk about them. But mainly what I'm getting at is that our engineering capacity is very high. And so we're able to do certain customizations that other people may not be interested in. So if you're on Shopify, then there's certainly reasons why you went that way, right? There's this minimalist design idea, and there's something to this in the sense that, especially when you're first getting started, it's very easy to maintain when you have a very minimalist design. There are fewer server resources, which means that your hosting is going to be reduced. You're going to have an easier time getting your website to be responsive, meaning that it's going to be easier to get it to work on the tablet and cell phones, and there's just less overall maintenance. I don't know if you guys have ever been in a business class. They usually talk about the bell curve. Businesses tend to go through this bell curve, and what happens is that some entrepreneurs, when they get to the top, they don't realize that they've kind of ran out of steam with their current strategy, and they have to adapt and evolve in order to keep it going and start a new curve to keep going up. And what a lot of people do is they end up not realizing that, and they end up kind of going down. So we tend to start working with people when they're kind of on this side of the bell curve or on this side. If you're on this side, people tend to have more resources left to make changes. And then depending on how far you are down here, sometimes people get to us, they're already way down here. It's so late. There's just nothing we can do to help them revive a business that's been in decline for too long. But when people get to us and they're further up here, then there's a lot more that we can do. Typically, people still have resources. So this is something to think about in your business, especially because I know that a lot of businesses here are actually newer businesses. It's really cool to see people, younger people starting businesses as well. So when I talk with these folks, what I hear a lot is that template-based e-commerce is really great for getting up and running. But if your product has any personalization or anything at all, really, that puts it in a league of its own, where it really needs some customization, or if you're very particular about your branding, if you're one of these people, you will know it because you will have tried to do something and found that you hit a limitation. And a lot of that is because you don't necessarily have a trusted partner. When you're dealing with something, what I would call a retail-based shopping experience, I don't mean for your customers, I mean for you yourself. So when you yourself need help and support, you have to go through a retail experience, just like waiting at the line at Chipotle or anything else. It's not quite the same as working, like taking professional services and then trying to give them to people through a retail model does bring the cost down, but then you never get to talk to the same person twice. You don't have somebody who's going to champion your cause. You don't have a relationship with that person. You're generally talking to somebody who's making minimum wage. So there's just those kinds of things that make it difficult for you to execute your vision. And what I really like too is I work with a lot of business owners. Everybody's a software company these days. You'll hear that kind of being used in the market more and more, that every company is a software company. And so we run into business owners all the time that are actually very savvy with HTML and CSS, and they run into issues where they're not able to really fully customize the output the way they want to, especially in those checkout pages. Some of the complaints that we've heard about are transaction fees. So if you're a new store, let's say you're doing less than $4,000 a month in sales, when you first sign up for your merchant account, they give you the highest cost, best benefit for them for as far as making profit. And then, of course, the worst case scenario for you, because you don't have enough volume to really negotiate a discount. What ProjectThunder does is, what we do is we work with people, multiple vendors, to try to provide options for you so that you can get a better rate on these transaction fees. So a lot of it just has to do, it just really depends on the sales agent that you're dealing with. If they wanted to give you a better rate, they absolutely could, but they are in business to make money. So you have to know kind of like what your options are, just like when you bought your first car. If you were like me, you went in and you probably didn't get a very good deal, probably paid way too much in APR, things like that. So there's really nothing new here. When you started your business, people also are the first option they present will be obviously the best case scenario for them. So once you get to the point where you're doing more than $4,000 a month in gross sales, it gets really interesting when you start doing more like $20,000 or $30,000. But if you're doing at least $4,000 a month in sales, I'm going to give you my email at the end, and you can email me, and I can hook you up with somebody who will give you a competitive analysis and make sure that you're getting a good rate. Because the problem with the transaction fees is that if you opened up an account on day one and you never renegotiated your fees, by the time that you get to where you're doing 20 grand or maybe 30,000 a month, what's happening is that you're basically making somebody's Cadillac payment for them, and you're literally losing $400, $500, maybe $600 a month in extra fees. And the way that the fees are represented in statements is purposely, just like any fee. They bury it so you can't see it. They roll it up. They might do some of the transaction fees in line with the deposit, and they might do another transaction fee at the end of the month. So those are just some things you can take a look at, and people that are well versed in this are able to kind of explain to you, where those fees are coming from. One common example where you can find like what I call fee stuffing is that if a customer is using a card that has rewards on it, for instance, let's say you have a customer who's paying with a Starbucks card, and what that means is that when they pay with their Starbucks card, they might get 1% of that purchase towards a Starbucks purchase, but you're the merchant and you're actually paying for that 1%. So when they use the Starbucks card, you're effectively, as the merchant, you're paying for that cup of Starbucks that they're going to get. And then, but also what happens is the sales agents for the merchant statements, they also say, well, you're not getting a good deal on that anyways, so I'll go ahead and tack on a little extra commission there as well, so I can advertise a standard rate of this really low and looks attractive, but then when people come in with these specialty cards, that's where we actually make our money. So anyways, there's all kinds of little tricks to making sure that you're not paying too much for your merchant processing, and like I said, I'd be happy to connect you with an expert who will make sure you're not paying too much. Okay. Another common growing pain that we hear from folks is that their checkout process is difficult to control. In certain cases, like depending on what plan you have, you may actually be redirected away from your domain, which is then kind of like compromising your brand. People don't know what's happening. They're leaving your website and they're going somewhere else. Those are all things that, you know, depending on what your product is, if you're just getting started, those are probably all okay things. But if you want to keep confidence high and so that your clients feel like the experience on your website is consistent with every other website that they're on, that's why you want to start to kind of look at, you know, how do you control that stuff. And some people, quite frankly, just need custom checkout. Like, I mean, above and beyond just CSS and HTML, they actually need code written, new code, so that they can, you know, support a B2B process or something like that. Okay. I also just found some sort of common internet complaints, if you will. A lot of it has to do with a lot of features that probably should be common aren't. You have to actually upgrade to higher plans to get access to those. So the other thing, I kind of spoke about this earlier about the retail experience as far as how you're able to interact with the company that is providing the technology. When it's being provided in a retail setting, meaning that, again, like a Chipotle where you stand in line and you get the product that you want and then you leave and that's it. When you're running your website on that sort of platform, then, you know, it's more difficult. Whereas like my clients, if push comes to shove, they can just call me on a Saturday on my cell phone, or, you know, or my business partner, Alex, or something, if they're having a problem that it's urgent. You know, and especially because a lot of sales are actually done on holidays. You know, what are you going to do if your site's having a problem and you do 20% of your sales selling costumes during Halloween? You know, you have to have people around, and as your business gets larger, you need more accountability, and so you shouldn't have to go into Twitter and beg for help. And that's sort of, you know, kind of my point here. If you see that, so, but it's totally normal for a retail experience. But what we're getting at is you may, as your business grows, you want to get away from that sort of retail experience and get on more of a custom, a relationship with somebody who is, you know, your ally. One of our allies is Virto Commerce. This is a somewhat newer technology. It's been on the market. ProjectThunder is located here in Southern California, and Virto Commerce is also located very close to us. They're also close to us because we have a prior relationship with another company called MediaChase. A long time ago, like maybe 8 years ago, we were selling and servicing solutions on MediaChase, and just like the photo that I showed you initially of the growing pains show from the again, I guess the middle and late 90s. It was sort of a simpler time back then. It was a bit easier to kind of get sites up, and you didn't have mobile phones. You couldn't view the internet, you know, on a phone really. It was just, back then it was just more of a novelty, using like WAP and things like that. Virtual Commerce, and I wanted to try to tell this story through using the, you know, internet memes. Everybody has seen, if you're not a Facebook person, these are very common on Facebook. Everybody uses these images to effectively spread their message, but I wanted to also use that here. I'll talk about some of the benefits of a platform that's, you know, built by developers for developers, as opposed to for a retail experience. You know, where you're selling a lot of websites. Like Shopify is actually going public on the stock market, so you can imagine that their priorities are going to be realigned to serve their shareholders and keep their costs down. So with a platform that's built by developers for developers, especially for larger markets, while Virto Commerce is very friendly to startups, they're basically, for the enterprise level, they're looking for businesses that want to grow to do very well. The other thing about Virtual Commerce that's interesting is it's what I would call like a multi-dimensional shopping cart, in the sense that you're able to develop catalogs of products. You can have multiple stores. So if you've been selling online for a long time, you've probably figured out that having two stores could actually meet, two niche stores could get you twice as many orders as having one warehouse store. And that's partially because due to how difficult it can be to kind of do that keyword isolation and get the search engines to come along. Whereas if your sites are more niche based, it's just easier to get more traffic. So and it's also, this makes it everything a little more targeted as far as your advertising. So you get more money out of your advertising, more bang for your buck as far as your time. So we see a lot of people doing that, and you don't want to necessarily maintain products in like 5 places. So using Virtual Cart gives you kind of best of both worlds. Also, you're able to control your SEO by language and by region. You can also control your price list by region as well. And there's also what I would call true multiple currency and language support. If you're not already doing a large amount of international sales, I mean, you know your product, obviously, but if you know your product could be doing well in international markets, now is really the time to look into that. As you know, our government is renegotiating trade with a lot of the Asian countries. So if you have a product that could do well there now, that might be a good time to start looking into it. What we find is that most stores tend to do about, stores that are doing well are usually doing between 20 and 30% international sales. But again, it does depend quite a bit on the product and the market. Some of the other benefits of Virtual Cart is the fact that it's cloud hosted in the Azure cloud. It gives you some scalability options that, again, if you're doing that multiple regions, so if you're selling in, let's say, Canada and US, or you're selling in Europe and US, you could effectively take your website and distribute it across servers all over the world. And no matter where you're viewing your website from, if you view it from Europe, it will load your website from a server in Europe so that the experience for the user is very fast. I'm sure you've seen stats, but effectively for every extra second your site takes to load could cost you thousands of dollars in sales. So those are certainly things that you want to know are available for you if you're going to grow your business beyond just a local US market. There are other advantages, automatic backups. And then also there's really reasonable options for if you're a new business and you're just getting started. One of the things that I like about Virtual Cart personally is the technology. Because we've worked with products from this dev team before, we knew right away that the technology would be very good. We've done, tens of millions of dollars of transactions based on the efforts of this team. And what I can tell you is that we got Microsoft.NET is the underlying technology running in the Microsoft Azure cloud. Of course, we're using HTML5 and CSS3 with the AngularJS. And there's also a really slick search engine built in so that your data can be cataloged, even for, again, that multiple language support. So I don't know if anybody watched the Olympics. This girl was famous for not being impressed. She did win a silver or gold medal. I don't know if anybody remembers. So I just want to point out a couple of things. If you're watching on the YouTube experience, there is an option there to, of course, go full screen if you're wanting to see it bigger. You obviously, if you're just listening in, that's totally fine. If you have it minimized and you're just listening in on the side, we know everybody's busy. There's also an option there to engage with there's a Q&A module. So if you're on YouTube and you want to ask a question, now would be a great time to go ahead and click that Q&A module. From the perspective of a presenter doing a webinar, everybody's a shadow person. I don't have any feedback from anyone. So if you'd love to, pop onto the Q&A, feel free to send us a little note or ask a little question or anything like that. Anyway, so this girl here is a gymnast. She was, of course, famous on the internet for not being impressed. And if you're in this presentation, you're like, well, Calvin, I'm glad you got another product here. It looks like it's, like an inline replacement for what I have now, but I'm pretty happy with what I have. and the pain is not so great yet that I'm willing to switch. And that's okay, because we're going to get into that. So you can see this. I don't know if you were on Facebook when you saw this stuff go viral, but I just wanted to throw that in there. And Morpheus is now going to kick in here and tell us, what if I told you that you can convert your entire store to Virto Commerce? So let me show you what that means. Virto Commerce is built on .NET. It's a leading edge technology developed by Microsoft. A lot of applications that you use today are built on .NET. You probably don't even know it. Let me show you this presentation that we have here. This presentation effectively kind of shows how this conversion works. And so it starts by, we go into our Shopify website here to effectively kind of look at some of the products, and it will sort of walk through the process of migrating over. So the way that our offer is structured, you can certainly contact Shopify yourself, get set up, do all the legwork yourself, do all of the conversion, the nip tuck, the training, everything else. You could certainly do all of that yourself. But today we have a special offer that we're offering folks, that if you'd like to, and you don't even necessarily have to get rid of your old Shopify site. You could continue to leave that online. You could build out a niche site. But let me show you how this works, and then we'll talk about that a little more. Okay, so we're just going to come in here and take a look at some of these products, so you can see that there's some variants defined, and as well, these, there's some descriptions and some product images, and you can see that the product types have been defined, that sort of thing. Okay, you can see I got a collection here set up for shoes. Great. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at our theme. This is just a basic theme. The reason why this is possible, in part, is because the sort of the HTML frameworks, if you will, are very compatible between VirtoCart and Shopify. So we're basically just able to take their theme. Their themes are structured very similar to ours. And so what happens is that you have this thing in Shopify called extensions. And so what we've done is we've loaded a custom extension into Shopify, and now we're going to take our API key, and we're going to grab a password, and we're going to grab store name, which I'll grab from the URL here. Fantastic. Okay, and you can see now that I got all these options to import my collections, my products, my customers, my orders, themes, pages, and blogs. Now, there are some details here. Obviously, no transition is 100% perfect. I'll give you an example. If you bring your customers over, it can be difficult to deal with the password situation, because obviously Shopify does not hand out your customers' passwords. And there's some other things, but you can certainly engage with us about those little details that can pop up. And sometimes even the theme will need a little nip tuck, but more or less, it usually goes pretty well. So we're going to go ahead, just for this demo, we're going to go ahead and grab the theme, the collections, and the products. And we have a store set up, because remember I said you could have multiple stores. So we're just going to go ahead, we created the new store ahead of time, and now we're importing the data. Now, if you've ever migrated a website before, you know that this can be very time consuming. And in VirtoCart, you can see that once the job kicks off, it starts a notification to let us know that it started, and it will give us another notification to let us know that it's completed. Right now, it's downloading the theme, about 98 files associated with it. And like I was saying, if you've ever moved a website over, you know that you can lose business. You can lose page rank. There's an art to moving a website. You have to have a migration strategy. But there's also just the nuts and bolts of it, moving over all of your products, your catalog. It's a very testing thing for people, and it's obviously people don't want to move. They're sort of stuck on whatever they were on until they're willing to make a really big commitment to make that move. And this new technology that VirtoCart has developed really just takes most of the pain out of the conversion. And with a partner like ProjectThunder to walk you through it and make sure that everything is comfortable along every step of the way, to make sure that you get training, those are the kinds of services that we provide, and also the wealth of experience. So you can see now that the import is completed, and we can go look here. This UI, I'll just talk about for a second, because the presentation is moving pretty quick. This UI is very interesting. I'm going to show you a little bit more in a second. but you're able to, you can see you have these options in every window. So if you don't want multiple windows up at once, you can maximize one. If you'd like to keep one window up of all your products, you can pin it to the top. So you have basically what I would call like a workspace that's really designed to work around the way that you work. If you've ever used one of these web-based admins, you know that they're a bit slow sometimes, and it's difficult to navigate around. It's very time-consuming, and so having this sort of structure really speeds things up. If you're somebody who's hustling and trying to get your store online and really do well. So our images, our variants, our prices, you can see that this interface is also touch-friendly, by the way. A lot of the data points are many-to-one, so you can have multiple email addresses per client. And we can see that all of our images and all of our other attributes came across. So this is just a very straightforward demo. Obviously, we didn't have tens of thousands of products or a completely custom theme or something along that line, but you can see that the theme came across and we were able to effectively bring over the data. Normally, to move a theme and move all the products and that sort of thing, that can easily be, it can be thousands of dollars. So back to our internet memes. Yes, I mean to tell you that you can move your whole shop over using this migration tool. Let me give you guys a little bit deeper dive on the Virto Commerce and the admin. And we'll do that. Let's pop over to the admin here. So I'm just changing screens. And you can see that I'm in the Virto Commerce admin now. It does look a little bit like Shopify, I guess. But when you click browse, you can see you get all these modes. And again, all this is tablet friendly. So if you're using an iPad or something like that to run your business, maybe while you're on the go, you certainly will still have access to all of these things. Also, as you load extensions in here, you can extend the dashboard, but you can see that I can customize this any way I like based on what's important to me. I want to know about the numbers. How many items are purchased? So you can see you can customize this based on what's important to you. I won't dig in too much, but I'm just going to kind of very quickly hit each one of these nodes. You have this concept called catalogs, and catalogs effectively allow you to either virtually or rigidly define collections of products. So, and these catalogs can then be tied to different stores later. So I can have a Sony store, a Samsung store, and an Apple store. And when I click into one of these catalogs, I can then see the categories that are defined within it. Let me jump into pricing. If you've ever sold things across different markets, you know, sometimes what happens is you use like a kind of like some sort of currency conversion converter that attempts to do a real-time conversion. What this system does, it actually, you can assign real price lists to your products. So if you're going to be selling in Europe, you can have a European price list. You don't have to rely on a conversion tool that may not work right or may not be up to date and cause you to sell products. And plus, you might just want to sell your products at a different price in different markets. Different markets, you know, command different prices. So when I say multidimensional, that's what I mean. You're actually getting, you're able to take your products and sell them at different prices and present them with different content in different languages so that you can really optimize your customer's experience if you're going after any kind of international sales. All right. Let me jump into a few more things here. Of course, we have marketing. You can create promotions and like coupons and, of course, dynamic content. I won't go into that too much. Every shopping cart already has that. Of course, you can manage all of your customers' orders. And as you start to dig in, you can see that as you drill down, these other modules begin to open and you can start to get a feel. There's a sort of workflow engine. I won't get into that too much right now, but you do have some workflow here if you have any workflow that needs to go into your e-commerce experience. And of course, you can see that we can see all the different statuses in the order, and we can see the lines if we want, and we can make adjustments. And you can see that I don't know if some customers who do B2B often have hundreds, even thousands of items in an order. We have clients that easily have 2,000 to 3,000 items in an order, and you can then paginate through them. Because if you try to load one page of products, obviously the page will probably crash, right? So those are the little things that really make a big difference when you're trying to do this type of commerce. Let me, I also mentioned about the multiple stores. This is really nice because, like I said, once you've been selling for a while, you'll figure out that unless you're very wealthy and you have lots of resources, that the warehouse store approach may not always work as well as several niche stores, and that's what our customers are tending to find. Of course, you can modify and maintain all of your content throughout all of the different stores. You can have different content for each store. And of course, you can keep track of your customers. There's also this concept of an organization, because sometimes you might sell, like especially in a B2B scenario, you sell to an organization and there are different buyers within it. So there's obviously some stuff around that. And remember, I talked about the touch friendliness of this. I'm just going to show you this. I'm actually on a touch computer right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to stop using the mouse, and I'm now going to switch to just using the touch interface. And you can see that I'm having a pretty good time here. So if I come through, here's nothing to scroll through, but so you can see these are the modules. These are basically like, there's an entire ecosystem behind VirtoCart, very similar to every ecosystem. Like you have an app store on your iPhone or Android, or if you're like me, a Windows phone. And there are other app stores. So there's an app store sort of ecosystem built into here, so that whatever add-ons or extensions you need can be presented. All right, I'm going to wrap up this part of it. There's a few other things in here I could show you, but effectively, let me show you the shopping carts real quick. Obviously, being able to come in and in these examples, I don't know if there's anything that has anything in there, but if there are, looking at what people are adding to their shopping cart and then walking away from is a good way, a really good way to bump your sales up easily 10 or 15%. So having this there is really useful. All right. On the front end of the store, this is obviously just a really basic theme, but the HTML, if you look at it, is super, super clean. They're using, you can see that everything is all the product metadata is included here. It's just a very thoughtful, really good design. You can see that things have been, like we can take care of IE9 and stuff. But if you are an HTML person, feel free to take a look at this and look how clean it is. Of course, the JavaScript frameworks that we're using with the are very compatible with the Shopify templates, and that's why we're able to move them over. All right, guys, so let me jump back into my presentation here. We do have a special offer that we're doing for the calendar month of July. We are looking for people that, and like I said, you don't even necessarily have to get rid of your shopping cart. You could certainly do a niche store or anything like that. But folks that are looking to do something, ProjectThunder has researched some of the largest areas of opportunity to address this kind of need. And we've paired with Virto Commerce, a tool to preserve your investment in the Shopify template designs and of course your personal time, and convert your online presence into something more personalized for your business, and evolve out of what your company worked in e-commerce history. So I'm just sort of reading this off the screen, but you can get the idea that the purpose of the offer is to give you more capabilities to get people stronger allies, not just somebody that picked you up out of the queue on the phone system, but somebody who actually cares what happens to you. And that's how we tend to work with folks. So for a basic Shopify store to get it imported into Virto Commerce, we have an offer today, sort of a flat rate of $2,500 to come over. The Virto Commerce licensing is very similar to Shopify as far as overall cost. And they also have, for startups, they have very reasonable licensing. So if this is something that you're interested in or would like to just talk to us, please shoot me an email at calvin@projectthunder.com. If you're hustling, then please send me your top 3 business goals. Maybe you have some problems today that you'd like us to take a look at. Maybe something we can even help you with on your existing system. Also, if you're interested in doing just a double check on your merchant services to make sure you're getting a good rate there, you can also email me here at calvin@ProjectThunder. So this will conclude the webinar now, and what I'd like to do is just go ahead and see if anybody has any questions. Okay. All right, so I'm not seeing there might be an issue with the question and answer module today, but no problem. If anybody has any questions, please just shoot me an email over at calvin@projectthunder.com. We look forward to speaking with you. And again, thank you so much for your time. We know that recognize that people are super busy. And I'm seeing here that actually most of you stayed on for most of the presentation. So we really appreciate that. All right, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.